What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and this one I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla stock and what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to break down how the numbers are looking for Tesla's latest delivery report and why it's looking very, very strong for Tesla. I'm going to break down what's happening with the news affecting the markets, why this week is going to be quite strange, and how all of this could affect Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. Before I break into about all this information, though, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Tesla was up 1.66% for the day on Friday, holding up quite nicely. And the real question is, will Tesla continue to pump? Well, the answer is most likely yes. It's looking very, very good right now looking at the numbers. But right now, you have to remember that the market is going to be in a very strange position because the week is going to be very unusual. And I'm going to break that down in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about these numbers for Tesla. Tesla absolutely crushed expectations. They did very, very well. In total, they got over 466,000 deliveries. 479,000 plus cars were produced, and it's looking very amazing. In total, they had about 19,000 deliveries from just the Model S and the Model X's. And then for the Model 3 and the Model Ys, they got about 446,000 plus. So once again, looking very strong. In total, we had 466,140 deliveries overall, and we had about 479,700 in total production. The Model 3 and the Model Y making up the majority of the production deliveries. Once again, doing very, very well. This is making all the headlines right now. 466,000 deliveries in the second quarter. That is well above their 422,000 deliveries for the first quarter. That's another all-time high, all-time record for Tesla as this thing continues to break records. Looking very, very strong, beating expectations, and 96% of deliveries were actually from its Model Y crossover and the Model 3. So once again, very, very popular cars, looking very awesome, and people are very excited for this. Now, looking at many of these analysts out there, most of them are off on their expectations, very, very short compared to where it actually went. And that's a very, very good piece of news because Tesla absolutely smashed these expectations. Let me just show you this right here. I think I have it right here. Analysts on average expected 445,000 deliveries. That's according to 9 analysts. And the low estimate was around 439,000. The highest was 450,000. Well, actually, that's not true. I think that's the second highest. The highest I saw was 469,000 from Piper Sandler, but that's completely fine. Tesla still smashed basically everything out there. They did over 466,000, so that's well above the 450,000 max expectations from different analysts. So that's a very, very bullish piece of news. They absolutely crushed the estimates. That's looking very awesome too. There also increased discounts for many of their vehicles in the inventory, and they continue to do very well. Production rose 85.5% to nearly 480,000 vehicles, almost there. And that's for the 3 months ending on June 30th overall. So once again, looking very, very awesome. This is great news. There was also this news that came out that we now have a confirmed date for earnings. Earnings is going to be coming out once again for Q2 on Wednesday, July 19th. So just a couple of weeks away at 4:30 p.m. Central Time or 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This is going to be very, very important. Make sure you guys are ready for this. The news just came out. And overall, it's just making all of these headlines. Tesla crushes expectations with over 466,000 EV deliveries, killing it. I'm very, very proud of Tesla and the entire team for all their hard work. Wall Street was expecting 448,000. They did well above that. That's some awesome, awesome news. New record for them, of course. Looks just fantastic. Now, when it comes to the market, let me just quickly go over this stuff. We have Levi's reporting earnings. Not much else going on for the first 3 days of the week, starting on Monday. And then looking at Monday, we have some PMI reports coming out. So we are going to see some volatility for the first 15 and then 30 minutes for the markets with all this data coming out. Nothing too massive though. But let me just remind you guys, it's going to be a strange week because the stock market is going to be closed for Tuesday. There's going to be no trading on Tuesday. So make sure you're ready for that. The market's going to be open on Monday, then closed for Tuesday. But also in commemorance of the 4th of July, the market's going to be closing at about 1 o'clock p.m., at least for the equities markets, for the major exchanges. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So it's going to be closing 3 hours early tomorrow. It's going to be a very short day, only half a day tomorrow. Make sure you are ready for that, because if it's not, if you're not prepared for that, you may think the market's going to be open for longer and then make bad choices because of that. So just be careful. And just know the market's going to be open for only half a day tomorrow, closing at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Then it's going to be completely closed for the 4th of July for Independence Day here in America. That's once again going to give us a break. There's going to be less volume for the markets, but like I said before, it should not have too much of a negative effect on Tesla because lots of buyers will be coming in. Now, for Tesla, let me just go over this data. You can see it right over here. The price price ratio was relatively high, which shows that Tesla had relative strength compared to the markets. Tesla was holding up quite nicely. On top of that, Deutsche Bank was saying buy Tesla. They were the last ones to give a report. But besides that, many other banks were saying to sell your Tesla shares, get out of Tesla. They were giving it equal weight rating, saying to sell, like DZ Bank was saying to sell, and these different banks were coming out and saying the same things. But overall, it's very interesting how they were saying to sell your Tesla shares right before deliveries came out, and this thing ended up being very, very good. Now, going forward, if you look at this on a seasonality basis, Tesla tends to be green 53% of the time on Mondays, doing quite well. We tend to be a little bit weaker for the month of July compared to June, so that's worth noting. But for now, I think we're going to start off June in a very, very strong end for Tesla after that report. Tesla tends to do very well during the 4th hour of the trading day, but the market's going to close kind of early, so it may not matter as much. But for the later days of the week, this will matter a lot more. Finally, to add on to this, we saw the short interest of Tesla actually decrease a bit. So we saw over like 50 million Tesla shares shorted by like the Wednesday period, then it started dropping as we saw lots of short covering near the very end of the week. Now, why was this? This in turn helped Tesla to pump quite a bit. That's part of the reason why Tesla was pumping. But it's not just that. There are other factors as well. There was lots of FOMO buying before the big event, and lots of these shorts probably realized that Tesla's going to do very well for deliveries. They realized it was not a good idea to be shorting this thing very hard. So we started to see this decrease during the last 2 days. The data just barely came out today, the last 2 days of the trading week. And then after that happened, we started to see a big increase in volatility for Tesla and more buying pressure that emerged for the stock. As algos continued to buy Tesla, was looking very strong. But now what do I see going on for the remainder of the week? In my opinion, Tesla looks strong. It's likely not going to tank because of this. It's likely going to continue to push. Considering that this is a new all-time high record for deliveries for them, they smashed expectations between 440 and 450,000. Tesla gave us 466,000 plus deliveries. So that's some very bullish news in my opinion. I think Tesla's going to be well on its way to retest this $280 area. After that comes 286, 290, to potentially $300 if we get above the 290 area. And after 300, we could go all the way up to 315, but that's a bit of a stretch. We'll just have to wait and see on that if 315 could come. But if anything, it looks like Tesla's going to just gap up tomorrow. That's what I'm predicting. I think it's going to have a very, very nice open, but it's not going to be the majority of the move. I don't think it's just going to gap up all the way up to about like $300, for instance. I don't really see that happening. I think that what Tesla's going to do is it's going to gap up quite nicely, probably in that very high, like 270s or something like that. It's going to start off a little sideways and start pushing and pushing and pushing. And then it's going to try to make its way all the way up to get above 280 and get its way up to about 290 very soon. I think it's very likely Tesla's going to do that. If it breaks that, we could see this thing go all the way up to $300. Once again, the hype, the FOMO, and the excitement is not just going to last one day. It may last multiple trading days. But the only thing that could be a hindrance is the fact that the market's first off going to close a little bit early tomorrow, right? It's going to close at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Then it's going to be completely closed for the 4th of July, which is going to be on Tuesday. So then we don't come back until Wednesday. So a lot of the hype could cool off just a little bit, but I still think there's going to be FOMO buying and that's going to push this thing up. Also, even more shorts could consider covering, and we could see even more buying pressure enter the stock as more investors could pile into it. So I think the odds favor upside for Tesla. I'm anticipating a very nice gap up tomorrow morning. It could come all the way up to this imbalance around this like 275 to 280 area, then just try continue pushing from there. And don't feel bad if you missed that, because the thing is, you have to remember, we were managing risks. It's very important to manage risks. We had no guarantees that Tesla would give like such strong numbers, but it's completely fine because there are going to be many opportunities to trade Tesla still. It's not just going to do all the pushing during the pre-market. It's going to happen during the open hours. And there's still a big opportunity to trade this thing and watch these particular levels. All right, so watch these levels very carefully. Now, For support, I mean, I highly doubt Tesla's going to come down much any harder than this, but 260 is major support, then like 257 and 255. Then, 250 is going to come after that. I don't really see Tesla dropping that hard. It's most likely going to gap up around here, well above 270. Depending on where we gap up, we have this imbalance that's like up here, close to like this 275 area. That's going to be a zone to watch for tomorrow. So we could gap up, come very close to like 275, or we could gap up, a little bit less than that, then start pushing to 275. And if that breaks, this thing has the potential to push all the way up to 280 plus. It could easily do that tomorrow. With the limited hours, it could stop it a little bit early. But going into like the later days of the trading week by Wednesday and beyond, it could just try to keep going for 286, then potentially 290 after that, and then even higher levels. But for now, we're just going to be watching this like 275 zone. I think Tesla has a good chance of making it all the way up there. It's going to gap up most likely. And the numbers look very good. So this is very optimistic for Tesla moving forward. Now let's talk about SPY and just a couple of tickers. I'm going to try to keep this part kind of brief. SPY has a bearish divergence that is developing, but there's no true sign of this thing breaking down just yet. What I'm starting to think is this thing might try to push up a little bit more. It could try to make its way up to about this like 445 zone. Then it might cool off a little bit because of the less volume. So it may push up to about 445, then start to cool off just a little bit. The market could slow down just a tiny bit, and we could see this thing come down to try to fill its gap. I think it may get a retest of 440, but support tends to be quite strong right here. So there's no guarantee it's going to break down. If it breaks below 440, it's going to fill the gap all the way down and so around this like 438 area, maybe a little bit lower than that. So watch 440 as major support. For resistance, watch 445. Watch those zones very carefully. It could break a little bit higher. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. It could break a little bit higher, try to make its way to like 445 or so. And then it may cool off a little bit later on because of the less volume that's coming in and because it's going to be right before a big weekend. That's what tends to happen in the markets historically. And just know there is a bearish divergence that's developing. Keyword is developing. It's not fully developed yet. It's not really like tanking or anything like that. No guarantees it's going to happen yet, but it is developing. So I just want to note that we could pop a little bit, then cool off as the day goes on because it's going to be a very short trading week. So I just want to note that there may be less volume and a big weekend is coming. So the market tends to slow down with some profit taking. That's what tends to happen. So I just want to note that for SPY. For other tickers like NEO, it's going to be strong because they had strong deliveries. I talked about this previously already yesterday. Looking at something else like AMD. AMD looking quite nice. We have this imbalance up here on this 118 level. It could have more room. We're about to get a nice breakout. We're actually above our 50 man the 4-hour time frame. So we're going to be watching this as support. If it breaks down, watch 113 then 110 as support, but I don't really think it's going to break down much. I don't see it like tanking at this point. It looks a lot more bullish to me. It looks like we had a nice accumulation of bullish divergence. So I'm going to be watching this imbalance around this 118 level. I think AMD is going to try to make its way up to 118 over the next couple of trading days. More bullish on AMD. For Netflix, this thing hit resistance at 440 and kind of like stopped right there. We have this nice accumulation that's forming. There's also this imbalance up here around this like 445 level. So it might pump a little bit more to this like 445 to 448 zone, then get a rejection. That's what I'm leaning towards on Netflix. We will see what happens during the pre-market to it first, though. Looking at the triple Q, this thing is looking quite nice as well. The last time this came out, this thing was in this nice accumulation phase. It could get dragged up because of Tesla, so we do have this potential inverse head and shoulders forming. If it completes, it could make its way up to 372. That could be like the top temporarily before it does cool off a little bit. The odds do favor it maybe holding up nicely because of Tesla and because of other stocks that could be pumping as a result of it. Consumer discretionaries may get some more pumping thanks to the collective market helping it drag up. So watch that very carefully. I'm also anticipating a big rotation coming as we're going to see the finance sector gain a lot of strength. But if this hypothetically were to come down, just hypothetically, right, we're going to be watching 360 as support, 366. Then after that comes like this 366 zone, then 364 is going to come after that. 363.5, and then after that comes this next level around like 360. I don't really see it dropping that much, though. Just wanted to note those levels to be safe. I think the odds favor this is going to turn bullish, and I think it's going to try to complete this inverse head and shoulders thanks to Tesla. I think Tesla may help this thing pump up to about 372, and then it could try to find a top there. If it breaks, it could make its way up to 375, but I'm leaning a little bit more bullish on the QQQ. I think it can make one more attempt up before this thing does cool off just a bit. I still think there could be a tech correction coming a little bit later, but it's not going to be anything major, just a very, very minor pullback right before earnings start. And then once earnings are kicked off, that's going to determine if tech continues to squeeze as we approach like August, or is tech going to get a bigger rug pull? It's going to depend heavily on earnings coming out over the next couple of weeks. To add on to this, I don't really need to talk about the futures or like the Nasdaq too much. Looking at the Nasdaq, it's still looking pretty decent. There's no true sign of this thing breaking down just yet, and it's about to hit this major resistance around 13,864. There's this nice inverse head and shoulders forming, and it did gap up, so there's a good chance it may try to test this resistance. And we're going to see how it reacts to that, but there is a little bit more upside likely coming. We're just going to have to wait and see how it reacts. For SPX, this thing reached about this 44.58 level. If it tries to keep breaking out, it actually made a new high, but there's a bearish divergence developing. So if it breaks down, just hypothetically, right? If it ends up breaking below the 5 EMA, so you're going to be watching this carefully around this 44.22 level. It's going to come down to fill this gap around the 43.95 level. If it breaks below this 5 EMA, if it continues to pump, we could see this thing go a little bit higher. I would say closer to that like 4460 level around there or so. I could see it test that first before it cools off a bit. But I'm leaning direction that this thing has a little bit more room to go up and may try to push for at least 4460. And there could be some downside later on because of the weekend. So just watch that carefully. I don't really see it filling this gap very soon. It may take a couple of trading days, quite a while to actually get down there. But like I said before, because of the weekend, we could like pop in the morning and then start to cool off near the end of the day, because that's what tends to happen before these big weekends. The dollar is kind of red. We're going to be watching that in real time. There's not much else to say about it. Coinbase is still looking a little bit more bearish to me because we have this bearish divergence that's starting to play out. It got a bearish cross in the 4-hour time frame. I could see this pop a little bit, maybe retest like 71.8 to about 72.5. Maybe retest that zone one more time, then it may start cooling off a little bit more. It does have these imbalances down here. I'm going to be watching this thing make its way down to about 68 very soon, then potentially 66, then 64. I could see it come down to at least 66 over the next couple of trading days, give it maybe like a week to a week and a half. But I am leaning a little bit more bearish. So I think it could pop a little bit more and then start downtrending a bit. That's the direction I'm leaning in for Coinbase, looking at the bearish divergence and other factors like that. Looking at, for instance, like Apple, Apple is still looking quite strong, breaking another all-time high, hitting 194, testing 195 resistance. If it breaks that, I mean, 197.5 is not off the table right now, but Apple was quite overbought on the 4-hour time frame. Not a guarantee of anything because there's just no sign of weakness yet. It might just try to go all the way up to like 197.5 or so and then cool off. That's a possibility as well. We're just going to have to wait and see on this because Apple is in new territory. This is a new all-time high for Apple. We've never seen it this high before. So just watch resistance very carefully. We're going to see where this thing rejects. If it does slow down a bit, there's a good chance this thing may correct later on. But for now, we're not seeing it on the chart. The chart still looks bullish, so we're just going to have to wait and see where it rejects. It could push up a little bit more, but we're just going to have to wait and see for now. For Nvda, this is looking quite nice. There's a potential inverse head and shoulder structure, and this thing has the potential to push all the way up above this imbalance and to test the next resistance level around this 430 to 433 area. If that breaks, 440 is going to come. I'm leaning more bullish on Nvda. I mean, this has an inverse head and shoulder structure. It's pushing up nicely. It met this imbalance. It could cool off a little bit and then just try to make its way up. There's a good chance it's going to try to go for this gap up here that's unfilled from the pre-market around this 431 area. So I could see this thing hitting 430 very soon. Nvidia is looking quite nice, so we're going to be watching this very carefully. For Google, this thing is forming, in my opinion, another potential inverse head and shoulders. You could argue that, but it is below the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. You can see this was rejecting it very hard many times over. To turn really bullish, okay, we need to break the 50 EMA. We need to break and hold above it. If that's the case, this thing has more potential to push up, but it hasn't done that yet. I think it's going to try to do it, but we have to wait for confirmation just to be safe. If it breaks the 50 around this 121 area, it's going to push all the way up, in my opinion, to about this next important level around this 123 to 124 zone, all the way up here. We have a lot of chomp right there, so I think it's going to come all the way up there. If it breaks down, just hypothetically, 119 would be our confirmation of downside. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm leaning more bullish on Google, looking at the current trend as of right now. For Amazon, Amazon is once again holding up nicely, got a nice bounce off the 50 EMA. There's this nice potential bullish structure that is developing. We have quite a nice setup on Amazon. I think it's going to retest 131.5, and we're going to have to wait and see if it could break this resistance. There's a potential bullish triangle developing. There's a good chance Amazon's going to break out and try to make its way above 132.5 potentially even like 134. But for confirmation, watch a break above 131.5. I think it's going to at least test that at the very least as soon as tomorrow. So watch that very carefully just to be safe. Now, it also depends on the news because we have this unfilled gap right here. If it breaks below the 5 EMA, below like 129, there's a chance it may come all the way down to where this gap is at 128, 128.03, which is the 50. I'm leaning a little bit more bullish though, looking at this current structure, but just for confirmation, watch a retest of 131.5 and see if it could break. I think the odds favor it testing it at the very least. We're just going to have to wait and see on that. Meta has been holding above the 4-hour 50 EMA quite nicely over and over and over again. And there's a good chance it's going to retest $290 this week. Now, could this thing cool off in the morning and maybe retest to 50, maybe retest like 285 to 283 maybe? 283 I meant because that's where the 50 may be. It may cool off first and then try to bounce. I'm leaning a little bit more in that direction because it tends to get rejected off this 290. But if this thing pumps really hard and breaks 290, it's going to go flying and approach 300. I'm not sure if that's going to happen because it keeps getting rejected off this 290 area, but it keeps also holding above the 50 EMA. So it's weak and strong at the same time in a way. We just have to wait and see if it can break 290. If it gets that break, it's going to go flying and approach 300. Wait for confirmation. My gut tells me it's probably going to do that. Looking at the current trend, I mean, it still looks strong. There's nothing that's too weak about it. It just is struggling to break this 290 area. You could argue there's a head and shoulders forming if it does end up projecting. To be a bear, you need to see it break below the 50 EMA. If it breaks this hard, then it's going to come down. If it holds above this and starts pumping, there's still a lot of potential for it to hold up. But anyways, I think it's going to retest 290 very soon. We're just going to have to wait and see if it can break it. If it does, it has bullish potential. If not, it is what it is. All right, so anyways, for Tesla, it's looking very nice in my opinion. Holding up quite nicely and has a lot of potential. So we're just going to have to wait and see how it goes. I believe it's going to gap up tomorrow and start pushing to the levels I mentioned before. And it's likely going to get a very positive reaction to start off the week. Please remember, it's going to be a short trading week. The market is going to close at 1 p.m. Eastern time, so a lot earlier than usual. And the market's going to be closed on Tuesday for the 4th of July, which is Independence Day here in America. And then after that, the market will be back in action. Tesla may maintain its bullish momentum throughout the week. I think it's looking quite nice and has a lot of potential to go flying to the upside. Make sure you watch these resistance levels I mentioned earlier. And until then, I will see you guys very soon. Tesla's likely going to explode and start pushing to the upside, gap up and go, in my opinion. So watch the resistance levels carefully. Let's see if this gets above 280, 286, 290. And if it breaks 290, it's going to go all the way up to 300 plus quite easily. Those are the levels. Watch them carefully. I'm leaning more bullish on Tesla. It's looking good. And don't forget, with lots of shorts starting to cover already, they may continue on this trend, which could boost Tesla even more. Until then, thank you all for listening. Have a great weekend. Tesla to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.